I'm David VanDyke, and this is Behind the Bars of BRINK. So now we had the footage we needed to edit the film, right? And so editing was a whole other animal. I thought production was tough. There were certain obstacles we faced in the editing suite, which was DaVinci Resolve. It seamlessly worked with the Blackmagic Pocket 4K that I shot the film on. So the Blackmagic RAW integrated super well. The footage was great. It looked good. I shot it in this fake anamorphic mode. And so instead of using real anamorphic lenses, because hell, I didn't have the budget for those, that would have basically been our entire production budget, renting anamorphic lenses. So I knew the film was going to be inspired by the look of Uncut Gems. I'd recently seen the film, right? Came out in 2019, and it just had this really gritty, really cool look that I wanted to emulate for BRINK. And so to create that anamorphic look, which Uncut Gems is shot in, I actually made these little cutouts, right? It's just these little cardboard cutouts with an oval hole, and that creates that elongated shape, that elongated bokeh shape. And of course, flares and post can be easily added. So I ended up faking it for the film. Hope you didn't notice, but that's what I did. Hopefully people enjoy the look of it. I spent a while just trying to find every detail I could about Uncut Gems, like the film grain profile, so I could emulate the little fine grains, the actual colors of the film, so I could create a custom LUT that I could use that had that same feel. So that ended up being what I colored it with, because I similarly to production where I had to pull 100 different strings and wear many hats, there was the same idea in post. Luckily I had a great sound guy on it. I had a really good composer. My VFX artist that I had do the opening shot is a master's, worked on many big movies, and so he came on, helped me out there. And then of course we needed to do sound and get ADR bits, right? Actors voicing different parts that we couldn't get on the day. But by far the most time-intensive shot was definitely the police car pulling into the bank where the armored truck is, because the car we had didn't have decals, right? It was completely bare, so we had to put tracking markers on it, and then in post I just had to track those and put the police car, custom-made police car graphic on there. Never mind the truck, which had its own graphics, because in reality that armored truck was a U-Haul that, $20 a day to rent. I was like, all right, let's do it. I'll make it look like an armored truck. So that shot as a whole, there was other details about that shot, like some guy with a tripod in the background. I was like, okay, this guy's just casually taking photos in the back of our set. Cool. That was an adventure trying to make that, but in any case, we got through a lot of different visual effects for the film. Me and the help from Calvin, who's my VFX friend, who's just a mastermind in that department, and even a master filmmaker as well. Of course, we still had sound to do. Music had to go through revision after revision after revision. The edit timeline was definitely extensive, right? So we had 2022, where most of the editing took place, and then we had 2021, where I would intermittently cut scenes together. Like I said, I was doing it scene by scene. And so I would have, one scene in one timeline, another scene in another timeline. And basically for each production day, that constituted a scene. And so I was able to just kind of workshop it that way into finally meshing it all together at the end. Of course, there were delays. I had to make sure that the music was right. I had to go through ADR, a lot of ADR, which you may not notice in the film because it was, mixed in by this really talented, long-time Hollywood working sound mixer, ADR sound mixer. Just an incredible assortment of people that were able to actually come on the production as I was making it, because I was doing Instagram stories, I'd been putting out videos, I'd been doing things to actually promote the film, to actually make sure people knew it was happening. And by proxy of that, people noticed and wanted to take part, at least, if not on that film, on something else. So making BRINK actually brought so many incredible, talented, and driven crew and cast and people that I can rely on to this day that I still work with on projects. And that's how profound that it was of an undertaking. In any case, we end up getting all our ADR by summertime, and summertime is really just finessing everything now, or massaging everything into something that is going to be something I'm proud of putting out there, right? Summer of 2022, we have the film close to being done. Close to being done. Of course, I'm still going back over things. I'm tweaking certain bits, and I'm just trying to keep the money there to be able to put into wherever I might need it. So finally, after spending a lot of time in post, and unfortunately resorting to that age-old adage of fixing it in post, there was so much to fix in post, or at least to enhance in post. And I'm glad I did. I mean, full disclaimer, fixing it in post is not inherently a bad thing. You can do it if the scene necessitates you do it, as in if it's so bad it's gonna take someone out of the story and for whatever reason you just couldn't get to it on the day. Like for example, there was this round reflector disc in the back of one shot, and I was like, all right, that's easy enough to fix, take that out. There was this other scene where our lead actor comes up and pepper sprays the armored truck guard, right, as he's walking with the money. And we had a can, but the can didn't function. It wasn't gonna give us anything out of there. So I had Fabio, our amazing key grip on the project, turned special effects supervisor, stand right next to Ben with this functioning aerosol spray can, which was for creating atmosphere and haze in the room. So it put out this white mist. And I had him stand next to Ben and spray it on the same time he did. So then moving into post, I was able to take out his hand and where the can was and just keep this white vapor. And it seemed like it was coming from the can. So those are the types of things, and it was other things like that as well, that are obviously important to have look real, but also just out of necessity of not having the budget to get a real, working can that would give us this non-harmful spray, or simply hiring a special effects person. That just wasn't in the cards. So again, I had to take on a lot of that, and that pushed things along further.